Maya Chen had noticed them 3 weeks ago. Two men, always in a gray sedan with tinted windows and a dented rear bumper, always parked across from her apartment building in downtown San Diego, idling at the curb like a predator watching prey. At first, she told herself it was coincidence. The city was full of people, full of cars, full of reasons why someone might park on a residential street. Maybe they lived in the building. Maybe they were waiting for someone. Maybe she was being paranoid. But paranoia became certainty when the messages started. Anonymous texts from numbers that changed daily, each one more invasive than the last. The first was almost innocent. Saw you at Starbucks. You should try the caramel macchiato. She'd been at Starbucks that morning. She hadn't ordered a caramel macchiato, but she'd stood in line staring at the menu, considering it. Someone had been watching that closely. Then came descriptions of her clothes, her route to work, the grocery store where she bought wine on Thursday evenings. Details that could only come from surveillance, from obsession. Her hands trembled now as she read the latest message, standing in the hospital parking garage after a brutal 12-hour shift. Red scrubs today. You look tired. You should rest. We'll keep you safe. Wait. There were two of them, coordinating, planning, and they talked about her like they owned her. She'd filed a police report 5 days ago. Officer Harrison had been sympathetic but honest. Without names, addresses, or proof of immediate threat, there's not much we can do. Keep documenting everything. Vary your routine. Trust your instincts. Trust your instincts. Right now her instincts were screaming. Maya gripped her steering wheel, willing her breathing to steady as she drove home through darkening streets. She checked her mirrors obsessively. Every gray car made her pulse spike. Every vehicle that stayed behind her for more than 2 blocks felt like a threat. By the time she pulled into her apartment building's underground garage, her jaw ached from clenching. The elevator was broken, again. A handwritten sign taped to the doors mocked her. Out of order, use stairs, sorry for the inconvenience. Maya stood at the base of the stairwell, staring up at the flickering fluorescent lights that barely illuminated the climb to the 4th floor. The concrete walls felt like they were closing in already, the shadows too deep, the silence too complete. Her pepper spray felt small in her pocket. Insufficient. A toy against real danger. She thought about calling her sister Grace in Phoenix just to hear a friendly voice. But what would she say? I'm scared to walk upstairs in my own building. Grace had 2 kids, a husband, a normal life. She didn't need to absorb Maya's fear like a second-hand disease. Maya started climbing, her sneakers squeaking against concrete, each sound echoing up and down the stairwell like an announcement of her position. 1st floor, 2nd floor. Her breathing was too loud in the enclosed space. By the 2nd floor landing, she heard it, footsteps below her, moving faster than hers. Not the casual pace of a resident heading home. These were purposeful, determined, closing distance. 2 sets of footsteps. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she quickened her pace, her keys already gripped between her fingers like improvised claws, the way the self-defense video had shown her. 3rd floor. The footsteps were gaining, echoing louder now. She could hear breathing, low voices murmuring something she couldn't make out, but that made her skin crawl. Hey, a voice called up from below, male, casual, too casual. Wait up. Like they were friends, like this was normal. Maya ran. She burst through the 4th floor door into the hallway, gasping, her hospital badge swinging wildly from her lanyard. Her vision tunneled. All she could see was her apartment door at the far end. 4G, the brass numbers she'd stared at 1,000 times, now looking impossibly far away. So far away. She sprinted toward it, her bag banging against her hip, fumbling for her keys with shaking hands. The stairwell door crashed open behind her with a metallic boom that made her flinch. Don't run, a second voice said, sickeningly calm, reasonable, like a therapist trying to soothe a patient. We just want to talk. Maya's apartment door was 15 feet away. 12. 10. Her fingers found the key, but it slipped in her sweaty grip. She grabbed it again, desperate, her breath coming in short gasps that burned her throat. 8 feet 6. She could feel them behind her now, close enough to hear fabric rustling, shoes scuffing carpet, the heat of another person's body invading her space. 4 feet. Key in the lock. Turn it. Almost there, almost safe. Maya, one of them said her name like he owned it, like they were intimate. We know you saved people. You're a hero. Why won't you talk to us? 2 feet. The key slid home. She started to turn it. Then she saw them in her peripheral vision, both men blocking the hallway behind her, cutting off any escape. Their faces finally visible under the harsh fluorescent lights, and she recognized one of them from somewhere. The hospital, a patient, someone whose life she'd saved. Her blood turned to ice. The man stepped forward and the memory crashed over her with perfect, horrifying clarity. His face, his voice, his gratitude that had seemed so genuine 3 months ago. You remember me, don't you, Maya? She did. And that was so much worse than if he'd been a stranger. You remember me, don't you, Maya? The man stepped forward into the light, and the memory hit her like ice water flooding her lungs. 3 months ago, late September, she'd been 6 hours into a double shift when the ambulance brought him in, unresponsive, barely breathing, skin gray from an overdose that should have killed him. She'd been the one to start the IV, push the Narcan, breathe life back into lungs that had forgotten how to function. She'd stayed 2 hours past the end of her shift, checking on him every 15 minutes, adjusting medications, monitoring vitals. When he finally opened his eyes and started crying, she'd held his hand, told him he mattered, told him this was his second chance. He'd seemed so grateful then, so broken and humble and human. His name was Derek, mid-30s, gaunt face with hollow cheeks that spoke of years of addiction, eyes that held too much intensity even when softened by gratitude. He'd told her she was an angel, that she'd saved not just his life but given him a reason to live. She should have seen the warning signs then. Derek, you need to leave, Maya said now, trying to summon the same calm, professional tone she used in the ER when patients became aggressive. Firm but not threatening, authoritative but not condescending. Keep them talking. De-escalate. Find the exit. This is my home, you can't be here. We're not here to hurt you. The second man spoke now, stepping up beside Derek. He was shorter, stockier, with a neck tattoo of barbed wire crawling up to his jawline and forearms that looked like they'd seen the inside of a prison gym. His eyes were cold, calculating, not manic like Derek's, but somehow more frightening for their steadiness. Derek just wants to talk. You saved him. Don't you understand what that means? Maya's back pressed against her apartment door, the metal cold through her thin scrubs. Her phone was in her purse, might as well be on the moon. Her pepper spray was in her pocket, but with 2 of them in this narrow hallway, even if she got one, the other would be on her in seconds. She was trapped. I was doing my job, she said, keeping her voice level even as her pulse hammered in her ears. That's all. I'm a nurse, Derek. I help everyone who comes through those doors. Please. Your job? Derek's expression twisted, hurt flashing across his features like she'd slapped him. His voice rose, cracking with emotion. You held my hand for 45 minutes. You told me I was strong. You said you'd be there if I needed to talk. You gave me your smile, Maya. That wasn't a job, that was connection. I meant in the hospital, Derek, through the proper channels. If you need support, I can give you numbers for counseling, for addiction services. I don't need counseling, Derek shouted, and the sound bounced off the narrow hallway walls, seemed to shake the fluorescent lights overhead. I need you to understand what you mean to me, what we have. We don't have anything, Maya said, and immediately regretted the words. Derek's face crumpled, then hardened. You don't get to decide what it meant. I've been watching you, protecting you, making sure you're safe when you walk to your car late at night, making sure no creeps follow you home. And this is how you thank me. Running away, calling the fucking police. So he knew about the report. Had he hacked her phone, broken into the police database, or was someone feeding him information? The tattooed man, Marcus, she'd later learn, put a hand on Derek's shoulder. "Easy, brother, we talked about this. Stay calm." But Derek shook him off violently, his breathing rapid and shallow. Maya recognized the signs. She'd seen them 100 times in the ER, right before patients became violent. The dilated pupils, the muscle tension, the way his hands were clenching and unclenching at his sides. He was spiraling. "I understand you're going through something difficult," Maya tried again, falling back on her training. "Keep them talking. Validate their feelings. Find common ground. But this isn't the way, Derek. Let me help you get the support you need. Real support. Professional support that can." "I don't need support," Derek screamed, and this time he took 3 quick steps toward her. Maya flinched, her hand diving into her pocket for the pepper spray. "I need you to understand that you saved me. You gave me purpose. Before you, I was nothing, a junkie, a waste of space, someone the world would be better off without. But then you looked at me like I mattered." His face was inches from hers now. She could smell cigarettes and unwashed clothes and something chemical, meth, maybe, or whatever else he'd been using. Could see the broken capillaries in his eyes, the desperation carved into every line of his face. "You do matter," Maya said softly, trying to find the man she'd saved beneath the monster he was becoming. "But Derek, what you're feeling, it's not love. It's trauma bonding. It's a psychological response to a life-threatening event. It's not real." Wrong thing to say. "Not real." Derek's hand shot out, slamming against the wall beside her head. Maya jumped, her fingers closing around the pepper spray canister. "This is the most real thing I've ever felt. You don't get to tell me what's real." "Derek," Marcus warned. But Derek was beyond warnings now. "I love you, don't you see that? I love." He lunged forward, and Maya's thumb found the trigger of the pepper spray. But Marcus was faster. He grabbed her wrist like a vice, twisting hard. Pain shot up her arm and the canister clattered to the floor, rolling away across the worn carpet. "Now that wasn't nice," Marcus said softly, his grip tightening until Maya gasped. His voice was almost conversational, which made it more terrifying. "We came here to have a civilized conversation. Derek's been nothing but patient, watching out for you, making sure you're safe. And this is the thanks he gets." Derek was inches from her face now, his breath hot and rapid against her skin. His hands came up, not violent yet, but hovering near her shoulders like he wanted to grab her, hold her, possess her. "Why are you making this so hard?" he whispered, and there were actual tears in his eyes now. "I love you. I love you more than anything in this world. Don't you see that? I love." A door opened down the hallway. Everyone froze. The sound cut through the tension like a knife. The click of a lock, the creak of hinges, the shift of air pressure that meant someone was emerging into the hallway. And then Maya heard it, a low, rumbling growl that made the air vibrate. Not human, predatory, close. The kind of sound that spoke of teeth and violence and absolutely no mercy. A massive Belgian Malinois materialized in the hallway like something summoned from Maya's most desperate prayers. All lean muscle and controlled aggression, the dog moved with the fluid precision of a trained weapon. Its coat was a deep tan and black, its ears erect and forward, its dark eyes locked on Derek and Marcus with an intensity that made Maya's own fear seem pale by comparison. This wasn't a pet. This was a tactical asset. The growl that rumbled from its chest was low and constant, a promise of violence held barely in check. Its lips curled back slowly, deliberately, revealing teeth that looked like they could snap through bone like breadsticks. The dog didn't bark, didn't lunge. It simply stood there, radiating controlled lethality, waiting for a command that Maya prayed would come. Then came the man. He stepped into the hallway with the fluid grace of someone who'd walked into dangerous situations countless times before and always walked back out. 6'2", broad-shouldered, wearing a faded navy t-shirt that stretched across a chest built for carrying heavy loads through hostile territory. His jeans were worn, his feet bare, like he'd come straight from unwinding in his own space. But there was nothing casual about his presence. Mid-30s, Maya guessed, with short dark hair showing hints of gray at the temples. His face was weathered in that way that spoke of years spent outdoors in harsh conditions. Sun lines around his eyes, a small scar cutting through his left eyebrow, a jaw that looked like it had been punched more than once and never backed down. But it was his eyes that made Marcus's grip on Maya's wrist loosen involuntarily. Those eyes were a pale blue-gray like winter ice, and they held the kind of calm that only came from absolute certainty in one's abilities. They swept the scene in less than a second, assessed the players, calculated the distances, identified the threats, made decisions, and found both men severely wanting. This was a man who'd seen real combat, real danger, and two stalkers in a hallway barely registered on his threat assessment scale. "Gentlemen," he said quietly, his voice carrying effortlessly down the hallway despite its low volume. There was a slight rasp to it, like vocal cords that had shouted orders over gunfire one too many times. "I think the lady asked you to leave." The dog, Zeus, she'd learn later, took 3 precise steps forward, positioning itself between Maya and her stalkers with tactical efficiency. Its growl deepened, resonating in the confined space like a war drum. The animal's muscles rippled beneath its coat, coiled springs waiting for release. Derek tried to recover his bravado, but his voice cracked when he spoke. "This is none of your business, man. This is between me and her. We have a connection." "Wrong." The seal, because that's what he had to be, Maya knew instinctively, moved closer with measured steps. Each footfall was silent despite his size, a predator's approach. "This became my business the moment I heard a woman say, 'Please leave,' and watched 2 men ignore her. Now it's very much my business." He was close enough now that Maya could see the defined muscles in his forearms, the calluses on his hands, the way he held himself with perfect balance, weight distributed, ready to move in any direction. This was someone who'd trained his body into a weapon more dangerous than any gun. "We're not looking for trouble," Marcus said, and at least he was smart enough to recognize danger when it stood in front of him. He'd released Maya's wrist completely now, his hands rising slowly in a placating gesture. His street-smart instincts were screaming warnings his pride didn't want to hear. "Then you should have stayed in your car," the seal replied, his tone never rising, never showing emotion, which somehow made it more threatening. "Should have driven away when you had the chance. Should have realized that following women, harassing them, putting your hands on them, that has consequences." He stopped about 6 feet away from them, close enough to strike, far enough to react to anything they tried. Zeus mirrored his position, the dog's eyes never leaving Derek's face. "You don't know who you're messing with," Derek snarled, trying to sound dangerous but mostly sounding desperate. His earlier mania was curdling into fear, and fear made people unpredictable. "We know where she lives. We know her schedule. We know everything about her. The seal's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes, something cold and final. 5 seconds, he said simply. "Then my dog makes the decision for you." "What?" Derek blinked, confused. 5. The seal's voice was mechanical now, counting down like a missile launch sequence. 4, 3. Zeus lunged forward, not an attack, just a feint, 6 inches of explosive movement that sent both men stumbling backward into each other. The dog hadn't even left the ground fully, just a promise of what was coming, and it was enough to crack Derek's facade completely. Okay, Marcus grabbed Derek's arm, his survival instincts overriding whatever loyalty or payment had brought him here. "We're going, man. We're leaving." "Wait," the seal said, and something in his tone made them freeze mid-step like children caught stealing. He pulled out his phone with his left hand, his right hand staying loose at his side, ready. "Smile." The camera flash went off twice, capturing both their faces in stark, unflattering detail. Derek's wild-eyed panic, Marcus's calculating fear. "Good," the SEAL continued, his voice dropping to something that made Maya's skin prickle despite knowing it wasn't directed at her. "Now I know exactly who you are. And I've got friends in very interesting places, who can pull up everything about you by sunrise. Where you live, where you work, where your mother lives, where you buy your coffee, what you had for breakfast 3 days ago, every parking ticket, every arrest, every shameful secret you thought was buried." He took one step forward. Zeus matched it. "So here's what's going to happen," he continued, each word precise as a scalpel cut. "You're going to leave this building. You're going to delete her number from your phones. You're going to delete her photos. You're going to forget this address exists, forget her name, forget you ever met her. Because if I see either of you within 5 blocks of here, if I even catch a glimpse of a gray sedan with your faces in it." He didn't finish the sentence. The silence was more threatening than any words could be. Derek's face had gone pale, all his twisted obsession draining away into pure fear. "This isn't over," he muttered, but his voice was small now, defeated. "You can't watch her forever, Will." "Yeah," the SEAL said, and there was something like pity in his voice now, pity mixed with absolute certainty. "It is over. You just don't know it yet." Marcus was already backing toward the stairs, pulling Derek with him. "Come on, man, let's go. This was a mistake." They disappeared into the stairwell, their footsteps echoing down, frantic now, scrambling, all pretense of control abandoned. Then came the distant slam of a door, the sound of a car engine starting, tires squealing on pavement. Silence. The hallway felt larger suddenly, the air easier to breathe. Maya slumped against her apartment door, her legs unable to hold her anymore. The adrenaline that had been keeping her upright drained away all at once, leaving her shaking, gasping, tears burning behind her eyes that she refused to let fall. She looked at her savior, this stranger who'd stepped out of nowhere like something from a film, who'd faced down 2 men and a nightmare with nothing but a dog and absolute confidence. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. I can't." "It's okay." He crouched down, moving slowly so as not to startle her, and picked up her pepper spray from where it had fallen. He held it out to her like an offering. "You're safe now. They're gone." Zeus had relaxed completely, the lethal war dog transforming into something almost gentle. The Malinois padded over to Maya, pressed its head against her knee in what felt like reassurance. Maya finally got her key back into the lock, pushed her door open. She should go inside, lock it, call the police, file another report. But she turned back instead, needing to know who this man was, needing to put a name to the face of someone who'd just saved her life. "What's your name?" He smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face, softened the hard edges, made him look less like a warrior and more like a man. A kind man, a good man. "Jake Fontaine, just moved in yesterday, apartment." "Maya Chen, 4G," she managed a weak smile back. "Hell of a way to meet the neighbors." "Yeah," he glanced toward the stairwell, his expression hardening just a fraction. "Listen, those guys." "Do you really think they'll stay away?" Maya interrupted, needing to hear him say it, needing the reassurance even if it might be a lie. Jake's expression shifted, something dark crossing his features. His hand dropped unconsciously to Zeus's head, and the dog looked up at him with perfect understanding. "Let's hope so, because if they come back," he paused, his ice-blue eyes meeting hers with absolute certainty, "well, next time I won't stop my dog." And something in his tone, something cold and final and utterly merciless, made Maya wonder exactly what Zeus had been trained to do in places where rules didn't apply and mercy was a liability. What kind of man had just moved in next door? And what had he done before he became her accidental guardian angel? Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her body exhausted from the 12-hour shift and the hallway confrontation, but her mind racing like an engine stuck in high gear. Every sound made her flinch, the building settling, a neighbor's door closing, the distant wail of sirens somewhere in the city. She kept replaying the moment over and over. Derek's face inches from hers, Marcus's grip on her wrist, the terrible certainty that something worse was about to happen. And then Jake and Zeus, appearing like something conjured from her subconscious need for salvation. She rolled over, checked her phone for the 100th time. 2:47 a.m. She had to be back at the hospital in 6 hours, but sleep felt impossible. Her body vibrated with leftover adrenaline, her nervous system unable to accept that the danger had passed. Then her phone buzzed in her hand. Unknown number. You think your neighbor scared us. Big mistake. Now we know where he lives too. Maya's blood turned to ice. Her fingers trembled as she screenshot the message, her training kicking in, document everything, create a paper trail, build evidence. Another text came through before she could react. Unknown number. Tell your boyfriend he should have minded his own business. Nobody threatens us. Nobody makes us look weak. He's going to regret playing hero. The threat was clear. They weren't backing down, they were escalating. And now Jake was in danger because he'd helped her. Maya was out of bed before she consciously decided to move, her body acting on instinct and guilt. She threw on a hoodie over her tank top and sleep shorts, grabbed her phone and stepped into the hallway. Her hand hovered over her pepper spray, newly retrieved from where Marcus had knocked it away, but something told her she wouldn't need it. Not going to 4A. Apartment 4A's light was still on, a golden glow spilling under the door into the dim hallway. She could hear music playing softly inside, something instrumental, jazz maybe, Miles Davis or John Coltrane, the kind of music people listened to when they couldn't sleep and needed something to quiet the noise in their heads. She knocked before she could second-guess herself, her knuckles rapping softly against the metal door. Zeus barked once, sharp, alert, protective, then footsteps purposeful and quick. Jake opened the door and Maya realized he hadn't been sleeping either. He was still in jeans but barefoot now, his t-shirt replaced with a black Henley pushed up to his elbows. Behind him, his apartment was organized chaos, boxes stacked but labeled with military precision, a couch that looked barely used, a coffee table covered in an open laptop and what looked like file printouts. His eyes scanned her face, reading her expression with the same efficiency he'd assessed the hallway threat. "They texted you," he said, "not a question, a certainty." Maya nodded, unable to find words, and held up her phone like evidence at a crime scene. He read the messages, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. A muscle jumped near his temple. When he looked up, his pale blue eyes had gone hard and cold. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. Maya hesitated for only a second. Strange man, strange apartment, late night. Every self-defense video she'd ever watched screamed warnings. But after everything that had happened, after watching him face down 2 threats without flinching, her instincts told her Jake Fontaine was probably the safest person in all of San Diego right now. She stepped inside. His apartment was sparse but functional, just unpacked boxes labeled in black marker. Kitchen, BOOKS, gear in all caps. The furniture looked temporary, like he'd bought it from IKEA yesterday and assembled it with military efficiency. But what caught her attention was the laptop screen, glowing blue in the dim light. Split view, multiple windows, what looked like police databases, social media profiles, street camera footage, satellite maps. "How are you?" she started, but the words died when she saw the level of detail on screen. Names, addresses, criminal records, photos from security cameras she didn't even know existed. "I made some calls," Jake said simply, gesturing for her to sit on the couch. Zeus immediately came over, pressing his muscular body against her knee like a therapy dog, all the aggression from earlier transformed into gentle reassurance. She stroked his fur automatically, finding unexpected comfort in the contact. "Called in some favors from people who owe me. people with access to information that isn't exactly public. He sat down in the chair across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. His expression was serious but not unkind. Derek Paulson, 34 years old, 2 prior arrests for stalking, one in 2019, one in 2022. Both cases dismissed due to insufficient evidence or witnesses who suddenly withdrew their statements. His friend is Marcus Webb, 31, muscle for hire with a record of assault and battery. 3 arrests, 2 convictions, served 18 months in county. They're both escalating, Maya. This pattern doesn't stop on its own. You found all this in 3 hours. Maya's voice came out smaller than she wanted. I have good friends in interesting places. People who understand that sometimes the system moves too slowly and good people need protection. He pulled up another window showing what looked like a network diagram, connections between names, dates, locations. Derek's pattern is consistent. He fixates on a woman, usually someone in a caretaker role who showed him basic human kindness. He builds an elaborate fantasy relationship in his head, then starts surveillance. When the fantasy doesn't match reality, he escalates, follows, threatens, corners them until they either comply or break. Maya felt her chest tighten. So what do I do? Move. I can't afford to break my lease, and I love my job. I can't let them chase me away from everything I've built. Jake was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of experience. You could file for a restraining order again. With my testimony as a witness, the photos I took, the texts, you'd have a much stronger case this time. Judge might actually grant it. But, Maya heard the hesitation in his voice. But paper doesn't stop people like this. A restraining order is just ink and bureaucracy. It doesn't stop someone from showing up, doesn't stop them from waiting in parking garages or following you to work. Sometimes it just makes them angrier, makes them feel like they have nothing left to lose. Then what? The frustration leaked into her voice. What am I supposed to do? You document everything, every text, every sighting, every moment you feel unsafe. You vary your routine so you're unpredictable. You never walk alone if you can help it. He paused, his eyes meeting hers with intensity. And you let me help you. You don't even know me. I know enough. Jake leaned back slightly. I know you're a nurse who works doubles at Mercy General because you actually care about helping people. I know you saved a man's life and he twisted that kindness into obsession. I know you stood up to 2 men in a hallway before I ever showed up. You were already fighting back. And I know. He stopped, stood up, walked to the window overlooking the dark street below. His shoulders were tense, his hands gripping the windowsill. 3 years ago, my sister Emily was stalked by her ex-boyfriend. She did everything right, filed reports, got a restraining order, installed security cameras, told her friends and coworkers, did everything by the book. His voice was steady, but Maya heard the pain underneath. And then one night, he waited outside her apartment with a knife, waited until she was alone, until the parking lot was empty, until no one could hear her scream. Maya's breath caught. Jake. The police found her 12 hours later when she didn't show up for work. She survived physically. The knife missed major arteries by centimeters, but she's never been the same, moves every 6 months, can't hold down a job, can't sleep without medication, can't trust anyone. He turned back to face her and his eyes were haunted. I was deployed when it happened, couldn't protect her, couldn't stop it. So now when I see someone in the same situation, when I have the skills and ability to help, I don't walk away. I can't. I'm so sorry, Maya whispered. Don't be sorry, be smart, be careful, and let me help before this gets worse. He came back to the couch, picked up his phone. I'm giving you my number. You text me when you leave for work, when you come home, if anything feels wrong. Anything at all. 3 a.m. and you hear something weird. You text me. See a gray sedan, you text me. Understand? Maya saved his number with trembling fingers, then sent him a quick message so he'd have hers. The simple exchange felt significant somehow, like crossing a threshold. In the morning, we go to the police together. Jake continued, his voice taking on a planning quality. "We make sure they take this seriously. I'm also installing security cameras in this hallway, my expense, don't argue. And I want you to." Glass exploded inward. A brick crashed through Jake's window in a shower of crystalline shrapnel, landing on the coffee table with a heavy thud that made the laptop jump. Zeus erupted into furious barking, all gentle therapy dog vanishing in an instant. And tied to the brick with rough twine was a note in crude block letters. "Mind your business or join her in the morgue." Jake moved before the last shard of glass hit the floor. His body reacted with pure muscle memory, years of training compressed into seconds of fluid action. He had Zeus by the collar, pulling the Malinois back from the jagged window frame, and the glittering debris scattered across his coffee table. His other hand was already on his phone, dialing 911 with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd made emergency calls from worse situations. Maya sat frozen on the couch, her eyes locked on the brick resting among the broken glass. The note tied to it fluttered slightly in the night breeze now flowing through the destroyed window. The block letters were crude, written in black marker with an unsteady hand, anger and adrenaline bleeding through every stroke. "This is Jake Fontaine at 2247 Harbor View Apartments, 4th floor. Apartment 4A2 suspects just threw a brick through my window with a written death threat attached. They fled on foot heading south on Harbor View Drive approximately 30 seconds ago." His voice was calm, clinical, like he was ordering coffee rather than reporting an assault. "One white male, approximately 6 feet, medium build. One Hispanic male, approximately 5'10", stockier build. Both wearing dark hoodies and jeans. Suspects are connected to an active stalking investigation. The victim of that stalking case is currently present with me as a witness. Send units now." He hung up before the dispatcher could ask questions, moving immediately to the broken window while staying carefully to the side of the frame. Years of tactical training preventing him from silhouetting himself as a target. He peered down at the street 4 stories below, his eyes scanning with methodical precision. "They're getting into a car," he said, already raising his phone to take photos. "Gray sedan, same one that's been following you." Maya forced herself to move, to function, to be useful rather than paralyzed. She joined him at the window, careful to avoid the glass, and looked down. 4 stories below, 2 figures were scrambling into a vehicle parked at the curb with its lights off. Even in the dim sodium vapor glow of the street lamps, she recognized Derek's manic movements. Jerky, aggressive, fueled by whatever cocktail of obsession and chemicals was driving him. "That's them," she confirmed, her voice steadier than she felt. Jake's phone clicked rapidly, capturing photos in burst mode. The figures, the car, the angle of approach, everything. The sedan's engine roared to life and it peeled away from the curb, tires squealing like wounded animals. But Jake got what he needed, clear shots of the license plate illuminated by a street lamp. "Idiots," he muttered under his breath, reviewing the photos with satisfaction. Then louder, his voice commanding, "Zeus here, sit." The Malinois came immediately, all aggression channeled into perfect obedience. Jake crouched down, running his hands systematically over the dog's body, checking for cuts from the flying glass. Zeus tolerated the inspection with patience, his dark eyes still fixed on the window like the threat might return. "He's clear," Jake announced, then stood and did the same visual assessment of Maya. His eyes scanned her quickly, professionally, checking for injuries without being invasive. "You okay? Any glass hit you?" Maya shook her head, then looked down at herself to be sure. "I'm fine, I was far enough back." "Good." Jake was already photographing the brick, the note, the window damage, building a digital evidence file with the methodical approach of someone who understood how prosecutions worked. They just made their biggest mistake. "How is threatening to kill us a mistake?" Maya's voice pitched higher despite her efforts to stay calm. "Jake, they know where you live now. They're not scared. They're angry. This is my fault. I brought this to your door." "Stop." The word was firm but not harsh. Jake looked up from his phone, his pale blue eyes locking onto hers with intensity. You didn't bring anything. They brought this. They made every choice that led to this moment, and they just committed a crime I can actually prove beyond any doubt. He held up his phone, showing her the photos. Crystal clear images of Derek and Marcus climbing into the sedan. The license plate in perfect focus. Timestamp and GPS coordinates embedded in the metadata. Stalking is hard to prosecute, Jake explained, his voice taking on a teaching quality. It's subjective, requires patterns of behavior, needs credible witnesses, often comes down to he said she said in court. But throwing a brick through a window with a written death threat, that's assault with a deadly weapon, that's destruction of property, that's terroristic threatening. All captured on camera with a witness with physical evidence with clear intent. That's easy. Maya felt something unknot slightly in her chest, so they'll actually arrest them this time. They'll arrest them, charge them, and a prosecutor will have an easy case. Jake set his phone down and moved to the couch, carefully brushing glass off the cushions. But more importantly, they showed their hand. They're not patient anymore. They're angry, desperate, making sloppy decisions. That makes them predictable. Predictable how? Jake's expression shifted into something harder, more calculating. Derek's obsessed with you, that's his primary drive. But now he sees me as an obstacle, a threat that needs to be removed before he can get to you. So instead of maintaining surveillance and waiting for an opportunity, he's going to split his focus. Try to intimidate me. Try to get to me first. And when people split their focus, they make mistakes. Maya's stomach churned with realization. You're talking about using yourself as bait. I'm talking about ending this before someone gets seriously hurt. His voice was matter of fact, like they were discussing dinner plans rather than deliberately drawing the attention of violent stalkers. Someone like you, Maya stood up, agitation flooding through her. Jake, you're not invincible. I work in an ER. I've seen what happens when people think they can handle dangerous situations alone. I've pronounced people dead who thought they had everything under control. Jake met her eyes steadily. Maya, I've done 3 combat deployments in Afghanistan and 1 in Iraq. I've breached compounds at 2 a.m. with hostile forces waiting on the other side. I've survived ambushes, IEDs, firefights that lasted hours. I've been trained by the best military in the world to handle situations that would give you nightmares for years. He gestured at the broken window, the brick, the crude threat. 2 angry civilians with a brick and delusions of power. This doesn't even register on my threat assessment scale. You're not invincible, Maya repeated, but her voice was quieter now. No, Jake agreed, and something in his admission made him seem more human, more real. I'm not invincible. I bleed just like anyone else, but I'm trained, I'm prepared, and I'm aware. Are they? Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer with each second, that distinctive Doppler effect of emergency vehicles converging on a location. Police are here, Jake said, moving toward the door. We're going to tell them everything. Every text, every encounter, every detail you know about Derek from the hospital, every piece of evidence we can provide. And then his phone rang, cutting him off mid-sentence. He glanced at the screen, frowned at a number he apparently recognized, and answered. Fontaine, yeah, I saw just happened. When? Jesus Christ, okay, send me everything you've got, everything. He hung up, his expression darkening in a way that made Maya's newly calm nerves spike back into anxiety. What? She asked, dreading the answer. That was Danny Chen, buddy of mine who works in the SDPD stalking and harassment unit. Jake's jaw was tight, his eyes hard. He just pulled Derek Paulson's full case file. Derek's previous stalking victim from 2022, the woman who withdrew her complaint and moved out of state. What about her? She didn't want to withdraw. She was terrified into silence. Jake's hands clenched at his sides. Derek showed up at her workplace with printed photographs of her family, parents, siblings, their home addresses, their daily routines, their license plates. Everything. He told her if she didn't drop the charges and disappear, he'd visit each one of them personally. Make sure they understood what happens when people cross him. Ice flooded Maya's veins, spreading from her chest outward until her fingers tingled. My family. Oh God, my sister. Grace lives in Phoenix with her husband and 2 kids. Already on it. Jake was texting rapidly, his thumbs flying across the screen. I'm having Danny contact Phoenix PD right now. They'll do a welfare check, make sure there's a patrol car in the area. But Maya. He looked up, and the expression on his face told her the worst wasn't over. This is bigger than we thought. Derek isn't just obsessed, he's organized, methodical. He's got resources, contacts, people willing to do his dirty work for money or loyalty or whatever hold he has over them. This isn't some lovesick stalker. This is someone who's done this before and learned how to avoid consequences. A sharp knock at the door, official, authoritative. Police, SDPD, open up. Jake moved to the door, Zeus at his heels, and checked the peephole before opening it. 2 uniformed officers stepped inside, their eyes immediately taking in the scene. The shattered window, the brick on the table, the note with its crude death threat, Maya sitting on the couch looking shell-shocked. Mr. Fontaine, Ms. Chen, the older officer, his nameplate reading Harrison in capital letters, already had his notebook out. He was maybe 50, with graying hair and the weathered expression of someone who'd seen too much human ugliness. We need detailed statements from both of you. They spent the next 40 minutes going through everything chronologically. The initial stalking, the hallway confrontation, Jake's intervention, the texts that came afterward, and finally the brick through the window. Officer Harrison's expression grew progressively grimmer with each detail, his pen pressing harder against the paper. We can pick them up tonight, he said finally, closing his notebook with a decisive snap. The brick through the window, that's assault with a deadly weapon in California, combined with the established stalking pattern, the threats, the witness testimony. We can hold them, maybe get them denied bail if the DA argues they're a flight risk. For how long? Maya asked, her voice small. Harrison exchanged a glance with his partner, a younger officer named Rodriguez who'd been photographing the crime scene. Maybe 48 hours until arraignment, then it depends on bail. That's it? Maya felt her voice rising despite herself, frustration and fear bleeding together. They threatened to kill us, literally wrote join her in the morgue, and they get 2 days. If the DA files appropriate charges and argues for high bail, we might get them held longer, Harrison said, his tone sympathetic but realistic. With your testimony, the physical evidence, the pattern of behavior, this is a strong case. But the system has protocols, timelines. Jake's phone buzzed. A text message alert. He looked at the screen and his entire body went rigid, every muscle tensing like he'd just stepped on a landmine. Jake, Maya asked, what is it? His voice when he spoke was ice-cold fury, barely contained. They're at your sister's house, in Phoenix, right now. Maya's phone rang 1 second later, her sister's number flashing on the screen like a warning beacon. Her hands shook so violently she nearly dropped it. She answered on speaker, her voice cracking before she could form words. Grace. Maya, there's a car outside. Grace sounded terrified, her breath coming in short gasps. A gray sedan. It's been circling the block for the past 10 minutes. Mark went out to check on it and some guy rolled down his window and asked if I was home, asked if you visit often, asked when you were coming next. Maya, what the hell is happening? Why are people asking about you at my house? Lock your doors right now, all of them. Windows too. Call 911. Maya was on her feet, packing, her free hand pressed against her chest like she could manually slow her racing heart. I already did. They said they're sending someone, but it's going to be 15 minutes and, oh my God, Maya, Grace's voice pitched into panic. One of them just got out of the car. He's walking toward the house. He's coming up the driveway. Stay on the line, Maya's voice broke. Grace, where are Mark and the kids? Kids are asleep upstairs. They don't know anything's happening. Mark's at the front door with the baseball bat. He won't let me call him back inside. Maya, I'm scared. Officer Harrison was already on his radio, his voice clipped and urgent. This is San Diego PD, badge 2847. We need immediate support for Phoenix PD. Suspects connected to our assault case are currently threatening a family member in Phoenix. He grabbed Maya's arm gently but firmly. What's the address? I need your sister's exact address. Maya rattled it off. The numbers and street name burned into her memory from countless birthday cards and Christmas presents. Her mind was fracturing. Part of her was here in Jake's apartment. Part of her was in Phoenix watching her sister's house through a screen she couldn't see. Jake was moving faster than both of them. He'd already pulled up his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard with the speed of someone who'd hacked systems in hostile territory. What's the full address, Grace? Give it to me exactly as it appears on your mail. Grace's voice trembled as she recited it, punctuated by the sound of her own ragged breathing. Got it, Jake said, his voice taking on that command tone again, absolute authority that cut through panic like a knife. His screen split into multiple windows showing what looked like traffic cameras, neighborhood security feeds, satellite imagery. I've got access to the area security network through a contact at DHS. Pulling up nearby cameras now there. I see the sedan. Arizona plates. One suspect approaching the front door, second suspect still in the vehicle, engine running. Phoenix PD is 3 minutes out, Officer Harrison announced into his radio. Repeat, 3 minutes to location. 3 minutes. In Maya's experience working trauma, 3 minutes was forever. 3 minutes was the difference between life and death, between intervention and tragedy. 3 minutes was an eternity when violence decided to visit. Grace's voice rose into a scream. He's at the door, he's pounding on it. Mark, don't open it, don't open it. Through the phone, Maya could hear it, the heavy, rhythmic pounding of fists against wood. Aggressive, demanding, the sound of someone who intended to be let in one way or another. On Jake's screen, Maya could see the grainy security camera footage, a figure at a residential door, arms raised, fists hammering. Even through the pixelated image, she could see the aggression in his body language. The second figure climbed out of the sedan, moving toward the house with purpose. Grace, listen to me very carefully. Jake's voice cut through the chaos with surgical precision. I'm former Navy SEAL. I've handled situations like this 100 times. I need you to trust me and do exactly what I say. Can you do that? Yes, okay. Grace was crying now, her voice thick with tears. Take your phone, leave Mark to handle the front door and go upstairs to your kid's room right now. Lock that door behind you. Stay low, away from windows. Keep the kids calm and quiet. Phoenix PD will be there in 90 seconds now. 90 seconds. You hear me? I can't leave Mark alone down there. Mark is a grown man protecting his home. Right now, your job is protecting those children. That's your mission. Nothing else matters. Go now. Move. Something in Jake's tone, the absolute certainty, the command that expected obedience, made Grace respond. Maya heard footsteps through the phone, heavy and fast, then a door closing, a lock clicking. I'm with them, Grace whispered, her voice muffled now. The kids are still asleep. They don't know what's happening. Thank God they're heavy sleepers. That's perfect. That's exactly right. You did great. Jake's eyes never left the screen, his fingers still dancing across the keyboard, accessing camera after camera, building a complete picture. Okay, both suspects are at the front door now. They're pounding, yelling, but they're not trying to force entry. This is intimidation. They want to scare you, not actually breach. That tells me they're not confident, they're not professionals. How can you know that? Maya asked, desperate for reassurance. Because professionals wouldn't announce themselves. They'd find a back entrance, cut power, create confusion. These guys are amateurs following orders. His screen suddenly flared with red and blue lights, and they just ran out of time. Phoenix PD just arrived on scene. Officer Harrison confirmed, his radio crackling with cross-chatter between departments. On Jake's laptop screen, 2 police cruisers screamed into view, their lights painting the quiet residential street in emergency colors. The suspects at Grace's door saw them and bolted, but it was amateur hour all over again. The street was a residential cul-de-sac, a dead end. There was literally nowhere to run. Within 30 seconds, both men were face down on the pavement, hands zip-tied behind their backs, Phoenix PD officers standing over them with weapons drawn. "They got them," Jake announced, his voice carrying relief he probably didn't mean to show. "Your family's safe." Through the phone, Maya heard her sister's sob of relief, raw and broken and beautiful. Mark, are you okay? What's happening?" Her brother-in-law's voice came through, shaky but intact. "I'm fine, babe. We're fine. The cops are here. They got them. Both of them are in cuffs." The next 20 minutes dissolved into a blur of coordinated law enforcement. Phoenix PD confirming the arrests, names being run through databases, not Derek and Marcus themselves, Maya learned, but 2 associates, Tommy Vega and Jason something. Charges filed for stalking across state lines, terroristic threats, attempted home invasion, harassment. The Phoenix detective on scene made it brutally clear in his report to Officer Harrison. This was organized. This was coordinated. This was a network. "This just became federal," Officer Harrison said, closing his phone with a decisive snap. "Multi-state stalking with coordinated harassment falls under FBI jurisdiction. They're going to want statements from both of you. This case just got bumped up to their violent crimes against women unit." "Good," Jake said flatly, pulling up new windows on his laptop, network diagrams, social media connections, financial records that Maya was fairly certain he wasn't supposed to have access to. Because Derek Paulson and Marcus Webb aren't just 2 stalkers. They're running an organized network. This wasn't just about Maya. They've got infrastructure, other enforcers, other victims. This is systematic. Maya felt the room tilt around her, the full scope of what she'd stumbled into finally becoming clear. How many others? Jake's expression darkened as he scrolled through files. "At least 3 other women that I've found so far in my preliminary search. All of them had some kind of caretaker relationship with Derek, 2 more nurses, 1 therapist from his rehab program. All of them followed a similar pattern. Derek fixates, builds a fantasy, starts surveillance, escalates when reality doesn't match his delusion, uses his network to terrorize them into compliance or silence." "My God," Maya whispered. Officer Harrison leaned in to examine Jake's laptop screen, his eyes widening. "Where did you get this information? Some of these files are—" "I have friends in low places," Jake interrupted smoothly. "Well, high places technically. Intelligence community, cybersecurity, people who owe me favors from my time in the teams. They pulled everything they could find in the last few hours." He turned to Maya, his expression serious. "The good news is, with federal charges and multiple victims willing to testify, Derek's going away for a very long time. This isn't a local stalking case anymore. This is interstate criminal conspiracy, organized harassment, terroristic threatening across state lines. That's serious federal prison time. And the bad news," Maya could hear it coming, could feel the other shoe hovering. Jake's expression darkened, his jaw tightening. "Derek and Marcus aren't in Phoenix. They sent their foot soldiers, which means they're still here, in San Diego, and they know we just burned 2 of their guys." "So they'll be even angrier," Maya said, the fear creeping back in. "They'll be desperate." Jake closed his laptop with controlled force. "And desperate people." His phone rang again. Jake answered it, listened for 5 seconds, and the color drained from his face. "When?" he barked. "How long has it been up? Jesus Christ, I'm on my way." He stood abruptly, grabbing his keys from the counter. Zeus was up instantly, reading his handler's energy, muscles coiled and ready. "What happened?" Maya asked, already knowing she wouldn't like the answer. Jake's voice was ice, cold fury barely contained beneath absolute control. Derek just posted your information on a stalker forum. Your full address, your photo, your work schedule, your sister's information, everything. He's offering $5,000 to anyone who can deliver you to him by dawn. Maya's blood turned to ice. What? And he's not stopping there. Jake met her eyes, and she saw something in them she hadn't seen before, genuine concern breaking through his tactical calm. He just updated the post. The bounty's now $10,000. And he claims he knows we've left your apartment. Says he's offering an extra $5,000 to anyone who can find our current location first. Have to move. Right now. Jake was already in motion before Maya could process the words, his body shifting into a mode she recognized from military movies but had never seen in real life, pure tactical efficiency. He moved through his apartment with purpose, grabbing a black tactical duffel bag from behind the couch and stuffing it with essentials. Laptop, chargers, what looked like weapon cases, tactical gear, clothing. Every movement was economical, precise, nothing wasted. Zeus stood by the door at attention, his entire body coiled and ready, sensing the urgency radiating from his handler like heat from a furnace. Move where? Maya's mind was spinning, trying to catch up with the rapid escalation. Jake, if my address is already online, if people are already looking, where can we possibly go? Then this apartment is compromised, both of ours. Jake tossed her jacket at her from the coat rack. She caught it reflexively. Every lowlife, bounty hunter, and desperate person in San Diego now knows your face and address. $10,000 is serious money to people who have nothing. We're not staying here. Officer Harrison stepped forward, his hand instinctively moving toward his service weapon like the threat might materialize in the hallway at any moment. His radio crackled with dispatch chatter, other units being coordinated across the city. Detective Ramirez wants both of you at the station immediately. We can provide protective custody there, while FBI sets up a full investigation and coordinates with cyber crimes to take down that forum post. No, Jake's tone left absolutely no room for argument. He zipped his bag closed with a sharp sound that felt final. Police stations are public buildings. Anyone can walk in during business hours, scope the layout, figure out shift changes, identify weak points in security. If Derek's putting bounties online, he's drawing in people we can't predict or profile, amateurs looking for quick cash, thrill seekers who want the story, people desperate enough to try anything. That's more dangerous than professionals because they're unpredictable. So what's your plan? Harrison challenged, his cop instincts bristling at civilian interference. Go rogue, play vigilante protector. That's not how this works, Fontaine. Strategic extraction and secure location. Jake's voice was clipped, military precise. I've got a safe house, actually safe, not bureaucratically safe. Off-grid, no digital footprint, no paper trail, no database entry that can be hacked or leaked. We hole up there while FBI builds their case and coordinates the takedown. 48 to 72 hours maximum. He looked at Maya, his pale blue eyes serious. Unless you want to take your chances with protective custody in a building with public access and shift rotations. Maya thought about the police station, the waiting areas where anyone could sit for hours, watching, the parking garage with multiple entry points, the windows facing public streets. The shift changes every 8 hours where new faces appeared and old ones disappeared. She thought about Derek's network, his resources, his demonstrated ability to coordinate across state lines. Then she thought about Jake, who'd already saved her twice tonight, who'd found her sister in minutes, who'd tracked down Derek's entire operation in hours, who moved through danger with the kind of competence that made panic seem irrational. I trust you, she said, surprised by how much she meant it. Okay, pack a bag, 2 minutes, essentials only. His voice shifted into command mode. Clothes for 3 days, medications, phone, charger, ID, credit cards, nothing you can't carry in one bag. Zeus will go with you. He won't let anyone get close. Maya ran to her apartment, the Malinois padding silently beside her like a protective shadow. Her hands shook as she threw clothes into a duffel bag, jeans, shirts, underwear, her mind unable to process that she was essentially fleeing her own life. She grabbed her medications from the bathroom, her laptop, chargers, her passport for some reason, her nursing license, photos of her family, things that felt important in the moment even if logic said otherwise. The whole time her brain kept circling back to one horrifying thought. Somewhere in San Diego, maybe within blocks, maybe watching the building right now, people were reading that forum post, looking at her photo, memorizing her face, calculating whether $10,000 was worth the risk of kidnapping. Back in the hallway 90 seconds later, Jake had Officer Harrison's attention, speaking rapidly while checking his phone every few seconds. "Listen, you want to help. Monitor this building. Anyone who doesn't live here or can't provide legitimate reason for entry, you stop them and id them. Pull traffic camera footage from a 6-block radius for the past 3 hours. I want every vehicle that's been surveilling this location identified. And put pressure on that forum. FBI cybercrime should be all over it, shutting it down, identifying who posted, tracking IP addresses." "We'll do what we can," Harrison said, his expression conflicted between duty and recognition that Jake had valid points. "But Mr. Fontaine, if you're taking her off-site, we need a contact number and general location where we can reach." "No," Jake cut him off firmly. "The moment you have a location, it goes into a police database. Databases get accessed by authorized personnel who might not all be trustworthy. Systems get hacked. Information leaks. It's not personal, it's operational security." He shouldered his bag, gestured for Maya to follow. "You want to help? Find Derek Paulson and Marcus Webb. Get them in custody tonight. That's how this ends, source elimination, not defensive positioning." Maya emerged from her apartment, bag in hand, feeling like she was abandoning her entire life. Jake did a quick visual assessment of the hallway, both directions, the stairwell door, the elevator that was still broken, then nodded. "We take my truck. It's in the underground garage, level B2. Stay between Zeus and me at all times." They moved quickly but carefully, Jake leading, Maya in the middle, Zeus taking rear guard like he'd done this 1,000 times before. The stairwell was empty, but every echo made Maya's heart jump. Every shadow could conceal someone waiting with a phone, ready to collect $10,000. Every floor they descended felt like going deeper into danger rather than escaping it. Level B2 was dimly lit, the concrete pillars casting long shadows, the smell of motor oil and exhaust hanging in the stale air. Jake's truck was a black Chevy Silverado, lifted, with what looked like custom armor plating on the doors and reinforced glass. Not standard civilian equipment. "Back seat stay low below window line," he instructed, opening the door. "Zeus back." The dog jumped in first with fluid grace, then Maya climbed in, crouching in the footwell. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was insane. She was running from her own apartment, hiding in a truck, fleeing to an unknown location because strangers on the internet wanted to kidnap her for money. Jake was in the driver's seat seconds later, engine roaring to life with a powerful rumble. "Here we go. Stay down." They exited the garage smoothly, Jake's eyes constantly scanning mirrors, checking angles, processing information. Maya risked a peek out the window. The street looked normal. Empty. Too empty for 3:47 a.m. in downtown San Diego. "We have company," Jake said quietly, his voice steady but alert. "Gray sedan, 3 cars back. Different plates than earlier but same make and model. Could be coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences anymore." Maya's heart stopped. "What do we do?" "We lose them." Jake's hands tightened slightly on the wheel. "Hold on." He took a sudden right turn without signaling, then a quick left. The Silverado handled like it weighed nothing despite its size, responsive to every command, clearly modified beyond factory specifications. Jake wove through residential streets with the confidence of someone who'd done tactical driving under hostile fire, cutting through a CVS parking lot, doubling back through an alley, taking turns that made Maya's stomach lurch. Through the back window, she watched the gray sedan try to keep up, but it fell behind at a yellow light, the driver not willing to risk running it and drawing police attention. "Lost them," Jake confirmed, but his expression remained tense. "But there'll be others. That forum post went up 23 minutes ago. Every bounty hunter, desperate criminal, and opportunistic lowlife in the county will be looking for you by sunrise. We've got maybe 90 minutes before this city becomes actively hostile." "Jake, this is insane. I can't hide forever." "You won't have to." His voice was firm, certain. "FBI works fast on multi-state federal stalking cases with coordinated criminal networks. 48 hours, 72 maximum, and Derek will be in federal custody with charges that'll keep him locked up for decades. We just need to keep you safe until then." They drove for another 30 minutes, heading east toward the mountains. The city lights faded behind them, replaced by darkness and desert landscape stretching endlessly. Finally, Jake turned onto an unmarked dirt road, barely visible, no signs, just 2 tracks worn into scrub brush, and followed it for 2 miles until a small ranch house appeared, isolated and alone under a sky full of stars. "This is it," Jake said, parking beside the house. "Used to belong to a SEAL buddy who rotates overseas. He lets me use it when I need to disappear. Nobody knows about this place except people I'd trust with my life." Inside, the house was sparse but clearly functional. Living room with minimal furniture, kitchen stocked with non-perishables, 2 bedrooms, bathroom. But what caught Maya's attention was the security infrastructure. Cameras covering every approach angle, reinforced doors with multiple locks, windows with security film, and a panic room visible through a half-open door lined with supplies. "This is more than a safe house," Maya said, taking it all in. "It's a fortress." Jake set down his bag, immediately moving to a control panel on the wall and activating systems. Screens lit up showing camera feeds. Solar power with battery backup, well water, supplies for 2 weeks if needed, satellite internet that can't be traced to this location. And the only people who know about it are people who have bled with me in combat. Zeus did a systematic patrol of all the rooms, checking corners and closets, then settled near the front door, the choke point, the place any threat would have to come through. "Get some rest," Jake told Maya, his tactical assessment complete. "I'll take first watch, you're safe here." But Maya couldn't imagine sleeping, not with Derek out there somewhere. Not with strangers hunting her for bounty money, not with her entire life reduced to hiding in a desert fortress. "How did this happen?" she asked quietly, the question she'd been holding back finally escaping. "I'm a nurse. I save people's lives. That's literally my job, my purpose. How did doing my job, being compassionate, turn into this nightmare?" Jake was quiet for a long moment, standing by the window, looking out at the dark desert. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of hard-earned experience. "You can't rationalize obsession, Maya. Derek's brain doesn't work like yours or mine. In his mind, you didn't just save his life. You chose him specifically, validated his existence, gave him purpose and meaning in a life that had neither. And when reality didn't match the fantasy he built, when you didn't reciprocate feelings you never encouraged, his brain couldn't process the rejection. So he tried to force reality to match his delusion." "Have you dealt with people like this before, besides your sister?" "In the field, yeah." Jake's silhouette was dark against the window. "Insurgents who fixated on American female personnel, enemy combatants who took hostages and developed twisted attachments. Obsession is obsession. The context and culture change, but the underlying psychology doesn't. And here's what I learned after years of dealing with it. You can't reason with obsession. You can't negotiate with it or compromise with it or wish it away. You can only stop it." "How?" Maya asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Before Jake could respond, His phone buzzed, a sharp vibration that cut through the quiet like a warning. He looked at the screen and swore softly, viciously. "Jake," Maya's voice came out smaller than she intended. "What is it?" His jaw clenched, muscles working beneath his skin. When he spoke, his voice was ice-cold fury barely contained. "Derek just updated his post again. The bounty's up to $10,000. He turned to face her, and something in his expression made her blood run cold. "And he says he knows we left town. He's offering an extra $5,000 to anyone who can find this location and confirm our presence." "But that's impossible," Maya whispered. "Nobody knows about this place, you said." "I know what I said." Jake was already moving, pulling up security feeds, checking weapon systems. "Either someone followed us better than I thought, or—" His face hardened into something Maya had never seen before, cold, tactical rage. "Or there's a leak. Someone in law enforcement is feeding Derek information. And if they know we're out of the city, they can narrow the search grid to a handful of locations." "How long do we have?" Maya asked. Jake checked his watch, then the security feeds showing nothing but empty desert in every direction. "Until dawn, maybe 3 hours. And then we find out if a Navy SEAL and his dog can hold off however many people $10,000 can buy. That's impossible." Maya's voice was barely a whisper, her mind refusing to accept what Jake was saying. She watched him move through the safe house with renewed urgency, checking weapons she hadn't known were there, pulling tactical gear from hidden compartments. "Nobody knows about this place. You said only people you trust." "I know what I said." Jake's voice was clipped, controlled fury beneath tactical precision. He was already pulling up security feeds on his laptop, checking weapon loads from a locked cabinet built into the wall. "Either someone followed us better than I thought, which would mean they're professionals well beyond anything Derek should be able to afford, or—" He stopped, his jaw clenching as he pulled up police database logs on his screen. Information he definitely shouldn't have access to, but clearly did through his intelligence contacts. "Or there's a leak," he finished. "Someone with access to law enforcement databases." "What kind of leak?" Maya felt the room spinning. Jake's phone rang before he could answer. He checked the caller ID, hesitated 1 second, then answered on speaker, his eyes never leaving the security feeds. "Harrison." "Fontaine." Officer Harrison's voice came through tight with barely controlled anger. "We've got a major problem. Detective Morrison just checked the database access logs. Someone ran your vehicle registration, pulled your plate information, and accessed your known associate files 22 minutes ago." "Who?" Jake's voice was deadly calm. "That's the problem. The access code belongs to Officer Ryan Chen. He's been peripherally involved in Derek's previous cases, took some of the initial reports. He's not answering his phone, his patrol car's GPS is offline, and he didn't show up for end-of-shift debrief." Maya felt ice flood her veins. Chen is a common name. Nothing's coincidence anymore. Jake was already typing, pulling up information faster than should be possible. "Harrison, I need everything on Chen. Address, associates, financial records, everything. And I need it 5 minutes ago. Already being sent to your secure email. But Fontaine, if Chen's compromised, if he's feeding Derek information, you need to assume your location is burned. You need to move right now." "No," Jake's voice was iron-hard final. "Moving makes us vulnerable. Out on the road, exposed, reactive, predictable. Here, I control every variable. I control the environment, the approach vectors, the defensive positioning. We make our stand here." "Stand? Jesus Christ, you're not a one-man army." "Actually, I am." Jake was pulling equipment now. Night vision goggles, tactical vest, what looked like a military-grade rifle that Maya was certain civilians weren't supposed to own. "That's exactly what the Navy trained me to be. Hold a position against superior numbers until reinforcements arrive. How long until you can get back up to these coordinates? Harrison's pause spoke volumes. In the mountains off the main roads, 45 minutes minimum, maybe an hour if. Then I need to hold for 45 minutes. Jake turned to Maya, his pale eyes intense. Get in the panic room, lock it from inside. There's water, food, medical supplies, communication equipment. Don't come out until you hear my voice and I give you a specific code word, Seraphim. Not Harrison, not Phoenix PD, not anyone else unless they can give you that exact word. Understood? Jake, you can't face them alone. I'm not alone. I've got Zeus, superior defensive positioning, military-grade equipment and training they can't match even in their best nightmares. He gripped her shoulders, his hands steady and warm. Maya, I need you to trust me one more time. This is what I do, what I've always done. I keep people safe when the world turns hostile. But who keeps you safe? The words came out broken. Something flickered across Jake's face, surprise maybe, or something softer that he quickly buried beneath tactical focus. You do, by staying safe, by giving me a mission worth fighting for. He guided her toward the panic room. The space was small, maybe 8x10, reinforced concrete walls, a cot, supplies, and multiple monitors showing security feeds from every angle around the property. A small arsenal was mounted on one wall, handgun, ammunition, first aid kit. If something goes wrong, if I go down, there's a satellite phone in the drawer, already programmed with emergency numbers, and there's a tunnel. He pointed to what looked like a floor grate. Goes 200 yards east, comes up in a drainage culvert. Follow it to the main road, flag down help. Jake. Lock the door, Maya, please. She stepped inside, every instinct screaming to stay with him, but knowing she'd only be a liability in whatever was coming. She closed the heavy door, locked it from inside with 3 separate bolts, and heard him test it from the outside. Good, his voice came through the monitor's audio. Remember Seraphim. Don't open for anything else. Through the security feeds, Maya watched Jake transform. He moved through the house systematically, lights off, plunging everything into darkness. Night vision activated. Zeus positioned at a strategic choke point by the front door, the dog's training overriding any instinct to bark, just controlled lethality waiting for a command. Jake settled into a position with overlapping fields of fire, his rifle resting on an improvised shooting platform. Then he waited with the patience of someone who'd done this before in places where the enemy was better armed and more numerous. The monitors showed the perimeter, empty desert, dark sky, nothing moving except the occasional tumbling brush caught in night wind. Then she saw them. Headlights, multiple vehicles coming up the dirt road, moving fast, not trying to be subtle anymore, just converging like wolves who'd caught a scent. Company incoming, Jake's voice came through calm and steady. 4 vehicles. Estimate 8 to 10 hostiles based on vehicle capacity. Zeus, position Alpha. The dog moved to his designated spot with fluid precision, crouched, waiting. The vehicles stopped about 50 yards from the house, forming a rough semicircle. Doors opened. Figures emerged, some carrying weapons, most with improvised tools, all of them looking like exactly what they were. Desperate people chasing money they couldn't afford to pass up. And in the middle of them, directing like a conductor orchestrating chaos, was Derek. Even through the grainy night vision, Maya recognized his manic movements, his wild gestures. Maya, his voice carried across the desert, amplified by the quiet night. I know you're in there. Just come out and nobody has to get hurt. We can talk. I just want to talk to you. Jake's response was to turn off even the emergency lights, plunging the house into absolute darkness. Then his voice boomed out through external speakers he must have installed, amplified, authoritative, deadly serious. You're on private property participating in a kidnapping for ransom conspiracy. That's federal. Everyone here is looking at 10 to 20 years mandatory minimum, Turn around now and you might avoid prison. Your choice. You have 30 seconds. One of the bounty hunters laughed, nervous, trying to sound brave. Another started toward the house, cocky, stupid. They made it 20 feet. Jake's rifle cracked once, not at them, but into the dirt 5 feet in front of the lead man. The shot echoed across the desert like thunder. Both men dove for cover, all cockiness evaporating into survival instinct. 29, Jake's voice counted down. 28, 27, next shot hits flesh, your choice. Derek was screaming now, pushing his hired muscle forward. Get in there, I'm paying you, $10,000, just grab her end. 3 more figures approached from different angles, trying to flank. Jake moved like a ghost through the darkened house, appearing at different windows, firing warning shots that sent them scrambling. Zeus barked from inside, loud, aggressive, promising violence to anyone who breached the door. This is stupid, one of the bounty hunters yelled, his nerve breaking. He's got military gear, night vision, we can't even see him, I'm out. The man started running back to his truck. Another followed, then a third. Get back here, Derek's voice cracked with desperation and rage. I'm paying you can't just leave. Not enough to get killed, man, someone yelled back. 2 vehicles peeled out in sprays of dirt and gravel, leaving Derek with only 4 people instead of 10. His fantasy was crumbling in real time, just like his obsession, just like everything he tried to force into being. Fine, Derek screamed into the night. We'll do this the hard way, burn them out. Bad tactical decision, Jake's voice came through the speakers with almost clinical detachment. Smoke brings helicopters, fire brings first responders, and I called in federal distress 20 minutes ago. FBI, Phoenix field office, and county sheriffs are all en route. You've got maybe 15 minutes before this place is swarming with law enforcement. Derek pulled out his phone, checked it with shaking hands, and his expression crumbled. Even at this distance, even through night vision, Maya could see the moment he realized Jake wasn't bluffing. Sirens wailed in the distance, faint but growing closer. The remaining bounty hunters looked at each other, looked at Derek, looked at the dark house where an invisible warrior with military training was picking them off systematically. The math was simple. They ran. Within seconds, another vehicle was gone, then another. Derek stood alone in the desert, his carefully constructed delusion collapsing around him like a house of cards in a hurricane. His network, his plan, his obsession, all of it reduced to one man standing alone while sirens approached. He pulled out a gun. No, Maya whispered, watching the feed. Jake saw it too, Zeus hold. He burst through the front door, rifle up but not aimed at Derek, pointed down and ready but giving space. Derek, don't. Think about what you're doing, it's over. If I can't have her, nobody can. Derek raised the weapon, but his hands shook violently, the gun wavering. She was supposed to save me, that's what she does. She saves people, that's her purpose. She did save you, Jake said, his voice suddenly calm, almost gentle, a tone Maya hadn't heard from him before. In the hospital, she gave you your life back, gave you a second chance. But what you did with it, the choices you made, that's on you, not her. Red and blue lights crested the hill, 3 vehicles, then 4, then more. Derek's face crumpled, tears streaming down his cheeks mixing with dirt and sweat and madness. I just wanted someone to see me, to care, to make me feel like I mattered. I know, Jake said quietly, but this isn't how, you know that, deep down you know that. The first police cruiser skidded to a stop, officers pouring out with weapons drawn, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Drop the weapon, drop it now. Derek looked at Jake, then at the gun, then at the army of law enforcement surrounding him with nowhere left to run and no cards left to play. Slowly, so slowly, he lowered it, placed it on the ground, raised his hands. I'm sorry, he whispered as officers moved in, rough hands forcing him face down into the dirt, zip ties securing his wrists. Maya, wherever you are, I'm so sorry. I just wanted you to love me back. They dragged him away, reading him rights he probably couldn't hear over his own sobs. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in her apartment hallway, the same hallway where everything had started, where terror had turned her life upside down. But it felt different now. The building had installed new security systems, cameras at every angle, better lighting that eliminated shadows, a guard station at the entrance checking IDs. The neighborhood felt safer, though Maya knew that was partly illusion, and partly the fact that Derek was in federal custody awaiting trial. Jake's door opened. He stepped out with Zeus, both of them looking ready for their morning run, Jake in athletic gear, Zeus's tail wagging with the anticipation of exercise. "Hey," Jake said, smiling that real smile that still transformed his face from warrior to man. "Heading to work." "Day shift, yeah. First time in 3 weeks I'm not terrified to walk to my car." Maya hefted her nursing bag, her hospital badge hanging from the lanyard, back to her normal routine, or as normal as anything could be after surviving what she'd survived. "That's good, that's real progress." They stood there for a moment, the weight of everything between them, the terror, the danger, the nights hiding in a desert fortress, the connection forged in crisis that neither of them had quite figured out what to do with yet. "The FBI called yesterday," Maya said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Derek took a plea deal, 25 years federal prison, no possibility of parole for 15. Marcus and the others are looking at similar sentences. They found 4 other victims willing to testify once they knew Derek was actually going to face consequences." "I heard," Jake said, nodding. "Justice served, finally." "Because of you." Maya's voice was soft but firm. "None of this happens without you. You saved my life, saved my sister's family, took down an entire criminal network." Jake shook his head, uncomfortable with the praise. "You saved yourself by having the courage to ask for help, to trust someone you barely knew, to keep fighting when it would have been easier to give up. That's harder than people think." "I wanted to thank you properly," Maya said, the words she'd been practicing for days finally coming out. "Dinner, maybe. When you're not, running tactical operations or taking down stalker networks." His smile widened, something warm entering those ice-blue eyes. "Dinner sounds perfect. I know a place, quiet, good food, low probability of armed assault." Zeus barked once, impatient for his run, and they both laughed. "He's right," Jake said. "We should let you get to work. People need saving." "That's the job," Maya agreed, starting toward the stairs, but at the landing she glanced back. "Hey, Jake." "Yeah." "Next time someone needs a hero who actually shows up, someone who doesn't just talk about helping but actually does it, I'm calling you first." He laughed, real and warm and human. "Let's hope there's no next time. Let's hope this city runs out of Derek Paulsons. But if it doesn't, then I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere." Maya nodded, feeling something settle in her chest, not just relief but something deeper. Safety, yes, but also connection, also possibility. She walked toward the stairs, toward her car, toward the hospital where she'd save more lives because that's what she did. That's who she was. And knowing that Jake Fontaine and his dog Zeus were just next door, that if darkness came knocking again, she didn't have to face it alone, that made all the difference. Because the truth was simple. There would always be people like Derek. More stalkers, more obsessions, more threats emerging from the shadows where broken minds twisted kindness into possession. The difference now was that Maya knew she didn't have to face them alone. And somewhere in San Diego, a former Navy SEAL and his Belgian Malinois were ready to answer the call. Because some people weren't just trained to fight, they were built to protect. And that's a promise worth keeping. The E&D Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.